welcome to This Old Piano. I'm your host, Rob Gooddale. You know, sometimes when we are rebuilding pianos, we come across soundboards that have cracks in them. That's a pretty common thing, and there's a few different methods of dealing with it, usually involving some kind of epoxy repair if it's a really minor thing, or if it's a larger crack, we're going to have to gouge it out and put a shim in there. The problem with doing this is that usually there's some kind of showing on the bottom side. On the top, we can trim it, we can sand it, we can put a decal over it, it'll look great. But on the bottom, you can't do that. The ribs are in the way, the bracing of the piano is in the way. There's no way to get in there and practically do any real sanding and cleaning up of that board. Now, why would you need to do this? Because when you put shims in, a little bit of that shim is going to be poking out from the bottom. Now you're going to have to go under there and trim that, sand a little bit, or at the very least there might be some kind of glue line or something in there that you're going to have to clean up. What does that mean? You're going to sand away some of the old finish that's still on the bottom. Now, if it's in good shape, you put just a little coat over that and it's good, and leave it alone. Why fix something that's not broken? But if you do have to make a soundboard repair, it's going to show down there bad. Who's going to see the piano? Well, when you go through all this work of completely rebuilding the piano, it's really, to me anyway, very frustrating to have it all look nice on the outside and on the top, and it plays real nice, but the bottom looks like hell. Okay, who cares? Well, I'll tell you, if I rebuild a piano and I turn around and sell it for $35,000, the customer might love it the way it looks, but it's going to end up on its side on a skid board during delivery. They might not see it when they bought it, but as soon as it's in their house and the moving crew's there, it's going to be on its side, and they're going to look at it and they're going to see this horrible looking bottom side of the board, and one way or another, I'm going to hear about it. So, how do you clean that off? You can sand across the grain. Doesn't work very well. There's always little areas in there where you have to get in with some sandpaper by hand, clean it up. No matter what you do, sooner or later you can get it all stripped and sanded down and put a new coat on it, but you can just never do a very even job. So I started thinking about how can this be done a little bit neater, making it so that I can strip the bottom, clean up where my repairs were, and then put a new finish on without having it just look like a 3-year-old did the sanding job. Okay, here are two sections of the soundboard in which I've already done some sanding. On this side, it's been sanded by hand. You can clearly see it's had to have gone against the grain. There's really no other way to do it, but it's all scratched up. It's going to look even worse probably with a finish put on it, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about it if that's the method you use. However, let's take a look at this side. It's clean. There aren't scratches on it. There's a repair right there. I'm going to dress that repair up a little bit more before I'm finished. Generally speaking, my sanding job looks even, it's clean. After I sand the ribs, it'll be ready for a new finish and it'll look good. So how did I do this? Meet the Rigid R28600. Okay, Rigid, that's a Home Depot brand. Many of you are probably familiar with it. They call this a multi-purpose tool, and I guess that's really what it is. They don't give it much of a name more than that, but it has these different heads that go on here. This is one that it comes with. And what it does is the end of this, it just goes back and forth. It doesn't rotate, it doesn't vibrate, it's not like a traditional sander kind of thing. And the reason I say that is because one of the things it can come with, in fact it does include this one, is this little sanding pad. Now, why do I have two of these? I'll explain in just a moment. But at any rate, it doesn't leave the kind of sanding marks that, like say, a vibrating palm sander would. If you've used those, you know, it leaves those little swirly marks with just the least bit of grit that gets under it, and it's terrible. But since this thing just goes back and forth, I guess it maybe leaves a little bit of marking on there, but nothing like one of those other kinds of sanders. This is a really good tool for getting into a lot of tight spaces. And again, our problem is getting into that soundboard that's kind of constricted, that area there where it's got the struts and the bracing and all that on the bottom. You got the ribs. You need something to get in there, and there's just no traditional power tool that's going to do it. And in fact, as is, this won't either. But here's the solution. This is the magic part. This is the magic wand right here. Okay, I made this. This is a 3/4 inch piece of rod. I've tapped holes into each of them and threaded it. This is just a little piece of bolt here. I've cut off the head, and this end is just simply threaded. Effectively what we got is a male end, a female end, and I've just made an extension. So what I've done is I've fixed it for this guy to fit on there, and now what we've got is a way of getting in there and working around on that board to get it cleaned up and sand it nice and even. You're first going to go in there, of course, with your, do it by hand. You're going to have to get it off by hand first. If you don't, the paper's just going to clog up. But when you're finished, you're going to still have all those scratch marks, and it's just going to look terrible. You will have gone across the grain, and it's not going to be a clean thing. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to go in and clean it up. We're going to make it all even. Get rid of all those scratch marks, and when we're done, it's going to look fantastic. Why do I have two of these now? This is the one that I got first. Okay, this is the cordless version. It's the same product. It's got a battery in it. Problem is, first it was really annoying to have the battery on here because I had to wait for it to charge and everything. The second thing is when I went to go and use it, this last time the battery was shot. So I went down to get another battery, found out it was $50, and the whole new corded unit was $80 for 30 bucks more. It was a no-brainer. Hey, we're in a shop environment. What do you need cordless for anyway? It's not like we're going out in the desert to do sanding. So the corded unit, instant power, don't have to charge it. It worked great. And we're going to take a look right now and see exactly how we do this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this one little section for demonstration. I'm not going to really bother with the ribs right now. I will eventually do them, but just for this demonstration, we're looking at the board. Okay, so I've done a little make-believe, try-to-patch kind of repair sort of thing here, just to demonstrate that even though I made this repair here and then went over it with a little bit more finish, which in this case happens to be a little bit of amber shellac, the color still isn't right. It looks terrible. The only way you're really going to get rid of this is to strip it off and put a new finish on. The first step, we're going to have to go ahead and take this off by hand. We're going to go across the grain, and we're going to get all this whole finish off. Okay, I have now sanded one section. Part of it was done with the sanding block, part of it was done with just a piece of paper. Sanding block I can get in here pretty well in the large areas, but I am going across the grain and it is leaving a lot of scratches. In here, of course, I got this thing in the way. There's just no way. I'm going to be going like this. I'm going to be going like this. And it's a good example of how it's just going to look terrible no matter what I do because there's no access. Okay, here's another area. I got it all cleaned up, but I had to get creative with the paper, so it's all scratched up. It doesn't look very good. When I put a finish on there, it really is going to be just amplifying the scratches. Okay, all done. The scratches from the hand sanding are gone. It's very smooth and it should accept a very nice finish. Now granted, there are going to still be areas where the machine doesn't reach very well either, but at the same time, if the machine can't reach behind those areas, chances are you can't see behind those areas either. So it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. The point is, the majority of it is going to be clean. It's not going to have scratches all over it, and it'll accept a nice finish, and it'll look great. The final thing that I like to do before I put the finish on is to hide those repaired cracks. Even though there is no longer a gap there, it clearly shows. I like to use the Blendall powders provided by Mohawk. It comes in a variety of different colors. You can combine them as necessary, mix it with a little liquid lacquer, you can thin it if necessary, and apply it with a fine brush. If you're really creative with it, you can even grain it a little bit. And when you're done, those cracks will be virtually invisible from both the top and the bottom. Okay, so that concludes this episode of This Old Piano. Have a good one. Hope you learned something. Bye-bye.